So with our handsome Mr. P ready, we'll do a couple little find its. So I was able to adjust his new harness. I think it feels pretty good, but I'll make sure to double check it before he goes home. So what's nice about this one too is it kind of holds its shape, which I know for some folks is easier. Of course, one of them rolled right under the chair, poor thing. So with Mr. P, just like with Mr. O, ready? Mr. O, same thing, Aussie with his harness. I know some brands are easier or more handler comfortable than others. So if you're finding for Mr. O, you're really having a really big challenge attempting to put the gear on and off, even with the lick mats and some of those other items, then you may find a harness that is kind of holds its shape to be a little easier. I would still recommend a Y-shaped harness, which is what Peter is wearing right now. So that's where the shoulder blades on the puppy are able to fully extend and move. So our shoulder blades are always on our back because we walk on our hind legs, but their shoulder blade kind of runs on the side here. So if we have a harness that is like the Easy Walk harness or another brand similar, where it cuts in front of the dog's chest and goes across their shoulder blade, that also restricts the way their natural gait would happen. And over time, it could affect your dog's, arthritis or potential for injury, or they might even create associations that are not always that positive. So anytime gear has the potential to tighten, it could also frighten the pup or start to create negative associations. You can see that one. Negative associations with the tightening and that novel thing. So if let's say your dog is really scared of the UPS man and the harness that goes under their armpits or goes across their chest and it squeezes them, the tightening and then feeling more restricted or more trapped, or also sometimes it kind of doesn't feel good. That can start to associate, okay, the UPS man was scary, but now on top of it, it also feels uncomfortable or it hurts me. So that's where I don't love tools that correct or scold, or for example, create pain or lack of oxygen when trying to learn. So I'm not a fan of chokes or nylon chokes or chain chokes. I'm also not a fan of slip leads unless it's for a safety situation or a quick transport scenario. So sometimes veterinarians at times will have them on hand or a rescue. But if you're looking to equipment to change your puppy's behavior, you're going to be always needing a bigger and more harsh correction to stop a skill. So the reason we want to stay away from corrective tools is that even though we may deem certain behavior inappropriate or good versus bad, remember puppies and dogs are amoral. They're going to do whatever brings them feelings of safety, comfort, or maybe even a reinforcement from their perspective. So I'm not saying we're using anything adversive on the handsome guy, but this is why it's important to, when picking equipment, it should be benign and not create change in your puppy's feelings. Because then sometimes what we end up doing is not actually making the puppy feel better, but instead suppressing behavior. So ready? Peter, come. So right now I'm just going to warm up with Mr. P with a little bit with some find its, which he's been doing. There's a good truck noise going by. So we're going to do a few find its with some gorgeous name recognition, also those recall scenarios. So Peter, come. Oh, always embarrassing when your snack falls out mid-walk. Good job. So again, we might go into another little find it. So, and again, like we've discussed with some of the previous boys, is this reorientation back to you can be really helpful for loose leash walking, for coming when called. All of these behaviors and skills kind of build on each other. So let's say we're going to go into working a little bit with loose leash walking, even without equipment on. I find that can be very helpful in the beginning, because for a lot of folks, I find that it's one more thing they're thinking about is, where's the leash? Where am I going? Where's the puppy going? Where's my hand? So if I lose him, I might do my little kissy noise, get his attention back on me, and feed for that bounce back. Ready? Peter, find it. Nice. And then from here, I might work again. Peter, come. Yes, what a good job. Very pretty. So we might go again, with me or let's go, whatever slogan you want for loose leash walking, and feed for all these gorgeous moments with Mr. P next to you. And again, all these lovely boys are doing a splendid job. If you sometimes get a little bit of the jumping, dropped it. If you're getting some jumping jelly bean moments, so he's leaping up to meet me halfway, make sure that where your placement for your hand and where you're feeding, that does kind of matter. So if, for example, you're feeding across your body, which is fine, so that means your hand is over on the opposite side of the puppy and you're feeding there, be careful that when the puppy meets you, they're not in the middle of where your legs might be moving. I normally recommend feed on the side you would like your puppy to be on. So if he's going to be on my right side for now, I'm going to feed him while on my right side. If, for example, I know here comes the noises. So we got some drilling noises going on. Nice. We'll do a little find it. So there might be moments, like I mentioned earlier, where you might have to lower or tweak your criteria depending on what your puppy is saying they feel for comfort range or understanding. So right here, again, now he's on my left side versus my right side. I'm feeding him several little goodies for being on that side. What a good job. So remember too, learning history does make a difference. So if, for example, we've asked him in the past to do certain things and then we don't have reinforcements or we don't have something that might motivate that puppy, you constantly reminding them to do something might be you talking and them continuing to not understand, but also find very little value in our words or what we're talking about. So just like earlier, if we think about them like furry little exchange students who do not know what's expected of them verbally, culturally, or physically, Peter, yes, then we might have to show them how to be successful in these weird skills. He's like, lady, I've already done a few laps. I'm getting so tired. Two, I know we sort of chatted a little bit about his jumping up on you. Peter at times is a little bit nervous, so nothing bad, but it is one of those situations where what one person might think is overexuberance and kind of bombarding you could actually be anxiety. So remember that those F's, there's the fidget, there's fawn, there's freeze, there's flight, and then of course there's fight. But fidget can look very much so like a happy puppy, but actually you'd be hearing whining, sort of a lot of almost a sort of very spastic or wiggly movement. And typically they look frantic. So if you're finding that as you go to leave the room, so if he's already starting to do a little bit with some separation anxiety and getting apprehensive when you come in and out of a space, those would be skills I would definitely take a peek-see. I know I mentioned a prior video is with the harness practice. There are some, he's like, I'm taking a break over here. Ready, Peter? Come. He's like, I guess so. So if, for example, you're struggling already with separation training and getting comfortable feeling that being next to you and being away from you could still be just as safe, I would highly recommend to take a peek-see over some of the videos from the Word document that had some really great options for practicing and setting up your puppy to have a safe bubble, but then also work those skills well before you actually leave the puppy. So if, let's say you can barely step out of the room, that would be a place to start working and build up those dynamics. Peter, come. Nice job. And he's looking pretty good in the harness. I'll double check, make sure it feels kind of cozy. So it doesn't feel too shabby. I might adjust it a teeny bit, but not too bad. I might loosen one side a little bit more than the other and then make sure it's even on both ends. I do recommend to normally adjust the gear off of the puppy and then put it back on and gauge what it looks like. But he did quite well with me, putting it on and off a few times, just like I did with Mr. O, and working some of those dynamics. So, but for that jumping, if you're finding it tends to happen in certain moments, it could be he's overtired. It could be he's stressed. It could be also where maybe he's feeling like, again, he needs an out, but he doesn't know what to do with himself. So you may find, chewing is hard. You may find for Mr. Handsome is maybe make little notes as to when he's being successful or what setups. I know we mentioned like the green, yellow, and red set of lights. But you might want to take down little notes and see, okay, well, when does he start to get more anxious? When is he more jumping all over me? When is he unable to function or do well? So if you start to see a little bit of a pattern, it could be when he's lack of sleep. Maybe he hasn't had as much energy or mental stimulation. So there could be moments where because of boredom, they do other things. So we got some good drilling. Yes, nice. So right here is there's some funny noises, just like I mentioned for Mr. O earlier with the construction that's going on in his home or next to his home, is like right here, the truck just came on. Yes. So I'm not making him sit or focus as something scary is happening. I go right into easy peasy skills. So find it are much more attainable for your puppy than being told to go sit still while something scary is passing by. So imagine you were scared of something coming towards you like a spider, and I told you, no, you can't get up and move, you have to sit right there. You're gonna get even more panicked, and then me and the whole situation could become a very spooky setup. So, but if you were allowed to get up and move away from the spider, you wouldn't feel as flustered because you have that option to move and feel safe again. So for a lot of puppies, they are stuck on leashes, they're stuck inside a house, they're stuck behind some barrier. So sometimes for them, their concept of being able to get out of there is non-existent. He says, oh good, you stepped on a piece of cheese. He'll clean it for me. Thank you, Mr. P. So we'll go into another little find it. And I want to work a little bit more with that loose leash walking. 2, if he's a little bit mouthy with how he's taking his food, which he's doing stellar. But if let's say he was a little bit mouthy, remember to feed flat palm like I mentioned for Mr. O earlier. Ready? So that way when you are feeding, it's not the food gets released as he's also eating your fingers. Because then that can sometimes be a little confusing. The puppies might think the nibble is what then gave them the snack. So therefore part of the process is nibble the hand to get the paycheck. So we just want to be careful with how we're feeding or how he's doing things while practicing. So right now he's very intrigued in this lovely patch of goo with the cheese that we must have stepped on by accident. And now we're going to go ahead and do another little find it. And then I'll see if I can get Peter, come. Yes. So we have a lot more for noises today than usual. So this might be also why sometimes I have to tweak my criteria. Of course, it landed right into a crack, so a very good little distraction for him to go find the item. But he's like, lady, I may not be able to get it out. So, but if you're ever having moments where things are seeming unattainable, you're gonna have sort of flow to your practice. Nice check-in, mister. So you may not have the exact same setup every day. And then again, sometimes, oh, we got some good drill music, noises, not music. So you may have moments where he is doing stellar with certain skills, and all of a sudden the next day he doesn't even remember his name. So that is very normal for, again, having your puppies learn and then start to generalize behavior. But remember, training is not linear. So I would highly recommend, don't think about perfection, think about progress. So if you're feeling you're stuck in a rut, assess, what are we doing for when we're showing him? Are we giving him something to do instead of the thing I don't love? So I know we were discussing like jumping up, and sometimes it's a lot of it could be anxiety, frustration, they're overwhelmed, they're maybe have extra energy. They're not trying to be naughty. They're just doing whatever makes them feel sometimes better. So for Mr. P, if you're finding he normally comes running at you and he's really excited, right into some find its would be a great way to take some of the energy and pressure off of you and now onto the floor. You may even want to have, okay, here's a special chew toy you haven't seen all day. Have this and then go do that as you enter the space. So sometimes don't think about correcting things you don't like, but think either redirection or prevention when he doesn't know what to do instead. As you start to build in maybe some find it, then you might be able to throw in a sit or a down onto a dog bed and work a place behavior. So like obviously as I'm blabbing, I'm sort of trying to keep him engaged because there are some noises going on too. So I don't want him to feel too overwhelmed. So Peter, come. So right here, nice, what a good boy. He's like, hold up, lady. Nice, what a smart man. If I didn't get his response there, I'd go back and help him. Good job, sir. But let's say again, that jumping, you do want to pick a slogan. So for me, I normally use the word off for jumping up to something, someone, or an object. So to get off of, let's say, the dog bed, or to get off of the couch, or off of the counter. But if you're using the word down, down is typically what I would recommend for lying down. It is, again, whatever floats your boat. So I've had some students that use the word down as in get off of me. If you're going to do it that way, you might want to choose a different word for on the floor. So it could be belly, could be, again, relax, could be floor, whatever slogan you'd like. Ready? Find it. So, but if we are using a lot of the same words for different behaviors, that could be confusing too. You may also want to teach him to do a behavior that's not conducive to doing two things. So he can't be jumping if he's doing a find it. He can't be jumping if he's busy chewing on a bone. He also can't be jumping if you're asking him to go to a spot and work a bit with place. So let's say, for example, he's now finally a little bit more comfortable. There's been some funny noises and he's feeling much more cozy. I'm going to practice a little stay and just get him to hold that little sit position for a few extra little moments. So remember with stay, it's like freeze tag with room service. We're building up that not moving has a lot of value. Right now, you'll see that I'm not adding tons of distance for Mr. P because I don't want to make it so hard, it's so unattainable as the criteria around him gets harder. So I would have to lower my criteria if the environment itself was too challenging. because if we're looking for the puppy to be successful, you do have to change up the dynamic so that way they can be attainable in those skills. So again, all done. If he likes touches, you could say all done with some caresses, and then we get up and we wiggle. So the only time Mr. P would be stationary is while he's being fed for the stay scenario. So let's say again, we're gonna set him up maybe here so we can see him really nice. We'll get a little sit. If the sitting was hard, I would feed him for accomplishing that behavior first. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tell him to stay. And then we got some great noises going on. And I'm gonna again feed him and go yes. If you don't mark the moment your puppy does the right thing, it's not the end of the world, but I would make sure that your food has good timing. So you're feeding for in the spot you'd like them to be or for in the behavior you'd like to reinforce. So right here, we're just feeding several little crumbs from his little goodies that he had from home. Nice, it's very pretty. And again, sometimes you do 2 reps, sometimes 15, sometimes 4, sometimes 12. But if every time we did 1 and then done, then the next time you come near him, oh my goodness, chewing them while panting is hard. So if I lost him, I'm gonna regain little sit just so you can see him better. Again, we'll set him up this way. I'm gonna tell him to stay and we would restart it. So you're not gonna say your stay cue over and over. You're gonna say it the one time. If your puppy wiggles, just reset them up. They're not in trouble. You shouldn't be going like, or no, as they go to wiggle, because then you being nearby is sometimes a little scary or surprising or confrontational. So I want him to feel that if he makes a mistake, he doesn't have to worry about what a consequence could be. And while he's doing everything that is right from my perspective, I'm feeding or reinforcing for that skill to build value. So let's say I want to end this gorgeous stay. I'm going to feed him his last little snack. I might say, all done. We get up, we wiggle, and then he can take a break. Maybe if he's a little tired, I throw in a couple little find-its to take a moment where he can move before I reset him up in another stationary position. Remember, stays can happen anywhere, but for some puppies, having a visual target to hone in on, like a dog bed, a cot, a carpet section, whatever works, that can be really great for them for visual targets. So I'm gonna tell him to stay. And now let's say he's been doing pretty well. I'm not gonna add too much distraction, but I might add a little bit of moving from side to side and then go back and feed this handsome guy for not wiggling. So again, if I'm adding a little bit more to my dynamic, if my puppy was breaking, which means he's getting up and having a hard time, I would view that as him saying, I don't understand. This is overwhelming. There is the noises too. Peter. So right here, yes, great name recognition. If me adding in more dynamics when there's already plenty of distractions is too difficult, go back and make it easy. So again, I'm gonna tell him to stay. And now this time I'm not gonna add distance or movement or anything for him. I'm just standing in front of him. So there's some drilling, some big noises. We just want him to think that this is gonna be okay. So right here I'm feeding, nice. If he was ever nervous, I would go ahead and just stop what I'm doing when it comes to being stationary. And then, for example, do other skills that involve movement. So if your babe is ever scared, like you have someone like a worker coming to the house or you have funny noises, and now your puppy is flustered, so I'm just gonna feed him, all done, and we get up and wiggle. If your babe is being told over and over to go be stationary, as let's say the scary truck passes by or the big bang happens, now you're pairing being trapped and stuck of like, let's say a stay behavior with the bad. So we want to be really cautionary that your place behaviors or settling sort of exercises do not equal you can't escape and now you're trapped, almost like with that spider again scenario. We want to make sure Mr. P, if he thought, you know what, this is just too much, getting him up and wiggling should be the better option at that point. What a good job, sir. So we'll give him a little break from some of these skills and we'll work a few others, but this was really, really pretty. Ready? Peter. So great little name recognition. Nice. So I'll give you a little break and we'll do a few more other fun exercises.